Again, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Today, I'm going to talk about responsible AI challenges and responsibilities. As Gordon mentioned, I'm an associate professor at the Australian Catholic University in the Sydney campus. And I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. I'm talking to you from the land of the Gadigal people in Sydney. So this is the outline of my presentation. At first, we're going to have a look at what AI is and what it isn't, the importance of responsible AI, some principles of a responsible and ethical AI, and then we will discuss some other aspects of the use of AI ethically and responsibly, such as privacy and data protection, ethics in development of the AI systems, and then some high-risk areas in using AI. And I will go through the mandatory guardrails by the Australian government on the use of AI and developing the AI systems. And also, we will have a look at the future of ethical and responsible AI. And then after that, we will have a look at at some examples and case studies. So what is AI and what isn't? Basically, AI algorithms are based on mathematical principles. So on the surface, it might be a program, but the foundation of it is based on mathematics. A good AI can predict real-life dynamic and linear patterns, and it can imitate the behavior of a dynamic and nonlinear system. The initial popular trend analysis systems are able to do something linear similar to this, but AI can go to these points. So it has the ability to predict things and imitate the behavior of natural systems with quite a good accuracy. And that's why it has become so popular. One of the things that we need to just have a look at before getting to the ethics of AI is about some basic principles of the AI systems. One of the things is training and testing data. So some of us, when we see the AI systems, we might have the question on how can we trust them? Are they really accurate? So when we are testing the AI systems, because we can't really risk to put the actual AI system in a real-life setting and test it there, we have to make sure that it would react properly in a real-life setting. So in order to do that, what we do is we divide the data that we are training the system to two groups. One is the training data and the other one is testing data. So as an example, if you want to create an AI system to predict diabetes, and we have 120 patients that have participated in that study, as an example, for example, we use the 100 patients' data to train the system, and then we keep the 20 patients' data to show the system after we are happy with its training to see how it will react to some real-world setting. So that's how we test the accuracy of the AI systems in predicting things. And another question that in these days, now that AI has become so trendy, one of the things that some of us ask is, what isn't AI? AI is not if-then statements. And sometimes people, say things are AI which aren't. For example, this was the news that came on the Oral-B website, and then they pulled it down, about having a toothbrush that was using AI. But when you looked at what the toothbrush could do, it could tell you if you're pressing somewhere in your gum hard or on your teeth hard, putting too much pressure on a part of your gum, or you're brushing too long, then it will give you some alerts. So as you see, if-then statements are not AI. So as the users of the AI, it will be good to be mindful that, sometimes we might come across things like this, which are not ethical, but it will be good to be aware of these things. And of course, the importance of ethical and responsible AI is of great importance and value. So because it's becoming a big part of our lives, and it's our ethical and human responsibility to consider the responsible use of AI and ethical use of AI. And in order to do that, we have to make ourselves familiar with some principles and capabilities of AI algorithms in conducting research, and also how to apply the principles of responsible AI to comply with ethical foundations. These are some important aspects of responsible AI. Fairness, accountability, and transparency are the three important pillars that I will talk about first, and then we'll go through the rest. So what is fairness? AI systems are supposed to make fair decisions for all the people that are involved in dealing with those systems. And of course, one of the things that we should mention is that as AI experts, fairness can be checked. So if you're working with a team of AI experts and developing different applications, you can just ask them to check the fairness of the AI system. One of the things that might affect the fairness of the AI systems is, again, the training data, the quality of the training data. So if the quality of our trained data is not good, the AI system cannot really make fair decisions. For example, if you're studying the socioeconomic situation of school students, and then we go to a very expensive private school and we collect the data from there, the system that is trained based on that data wouldn't be able to make a fair decision, because the data that it has been trained on is related to the kids that are rich and have rich parents. And also another example, if you're training an AI system to tell us how apples look like, and we show it mostly oranges, it wouldn't be able to make fair decisions. And unfortunately, all these things could lead into biases. This is an example I took from the IBM website, and it was about an AI policing tool that it was used in criminal justice system, and its task was to identify and predict crime, but it was actually making decisions that were targeting the minority communities, and it was doing some kind of racial profiling. One of the things that we should know is, of course, bias is a serious matter in using the AI systems, but we can address it. We have answers to get rid of bias in the AI system, or at least check it and test it to make sure that it's not biased. But the challenge here is, as the users of AI systems, in an organization or personally, when we look at an AI system, we can't really detect if the person who has developed, or the organization who has developed this tool, has really had the knowledge of how to address bias. And on the other hand, even if they have had this knowledge, have they implemented it or not? So this is the challenge, that we don't know that. But it's our responsibility. If you're developing one, we look at all these points. There is another principle of ethical and responsible AI. One of the other pillars is accountability. When an AI system doesn't have integrity for some reason, who is accountable? Is it the developers? Is it the users or the regulators? Or it's just a collective responsibility of all these people? One of the things that I saw in the Washington Post, in 2024, was this piece of news that women were getting off birth control because of misinformation and disinformation. AI has been used unethically these days in many cases for spreading misinformation, which is false and inaccurate information, and disinformation, which is false information that is spread deliberately, which is worse. And as users of AI and as the people in the society, we come across a lot of these cases. So who is responsible? Someone should take the responsibility and accountability for these cases. For example, many years ago in the U.S. election, as another example, we saw that Cambridge Analytica might was allegedly, they were saying that they had changed the result of the election. So that was another case that someone should take the responsibility for this. One of the other considerations about the accountability of the AI systems is AI systems are never 100% accurate, and someone should be accountable, and we should have measures to mitigate the risks of these issues that happen in the AI systems, because AI systems can predict the patterns that are similar to the ones that they have seen, if you're talking about their ability in prediction. If something is not something similar to what they have seen, with a high probability, they wouldn't be able to make the right decision. So someone should be accountable for this. The third pillar of ethical and responsible AI is transparency, and that's something that I have been working on in the past few years. Initially, when we started working on the AI systems and they came about, they were mostly mystic black boxes. But nowadays, there are many research that are working on the explainability and explaining the results of the AI systems. Other than these three pillars, the important aspects for responsible AI are privacy and data protection, and also ethical development and some others. So regarding the privacy and data protection, when we are developing the AI systems, one of the things that we should consider is the privacy of the users. And as the users of the AI systems, we should be aware that when we ask a question from an AI system, in case we are not aware, they might save the question or the data that we are sharing with them. And then we should be aware for those systems, we shouldn't really share the privileged information with those systems, because that information could be saved and it could become a part of their training data. So it could be used as an input to produce further content for their future use, or making further decisions, or making a better training sample. Another thing that when I was examining a PhD thesis came about, and I thought it would be worthwhile to mention it here, is that de-identified data doesn't mean that the data can be shared. So as the users of the AI systems, we should be very much aware of these things. Another principle and aspect of the AI, responsible AI, is ethical AI development. And I thought it would be good in this ethical development, we have a quick look at the synthetic data and the issues coming from there. So the ethical AI development really talks about the development side of the AI systems, and it would be the responsibility of the developers to follow these principles. So for developers and for when we are developing the AI systems, we should develop them in a way that they're inclusive. It means that people, if they have a kind of impairment, they should be able to use and benefit from the system, and they shouldn't be discriminated against because of their impairment. And also one other very important aspect in developing the AI systems ethically is sustainability of the AI systems. Because they have impacts on environment, they have impacts on our society. Is it sustainable? So we have to look at those considerations. And another thing is, of course, the responsibility of the governments to make sure that we have enough regulations and guidelines to comply with the ethics of the AI systems that we will discuss further. So let's have a look at the ethical design. And as an example, let's say we want to develop an AI system with some synthetic data. So for ethical use of the synthetic data, we should test the system on the data that is actually real. So the synthetic data, in the cases that we don't have enough data, can be used to train the system, but we should keep some of those actual data and test the system for the real performance on the actual data. And any kind of synthetic data is not proper. We should test our synthetic data and make sure that it's a proper synthetic data. It's really similar to the data that has been used. And also another thing is, in the cases that are very sensitive, we might really not want to use synthetic data. So it's not something that we always do. And in continuation to the important aspects of responsible AI, there are some high-risk areas. So of course, all the applications of AI should be following ethics and responsible AI principles, but the high-risk areas are more important. These are, according to the government, the Australian government, these are announced as the high-risk areas in using AI. And for example, the systems that are using biometrics information, like they're being used to categorize individuals, their mental states, and they influence emotions fall into that category. If we are using AI for safety and management of the operations infrastructure for that digitally, like, for example, controlling the traffic in the city or supplying water and gas and electricity to the people, they fall into high-risk areas. If you're using AI to train and educate people in education and training systems for evaluating learning outcomes, for monitoring student performance and those things, this is also a high-risk area. If you're using AI for employment, for hiring people, so as an example, we have to make sure that it doesn't discriminate against the people who are older in compared to the ones that are younger. If you're using AI systems to access essential public services, so for example, if you're using an AI system to determine if someone is NDIS eligible or some other things similar to that. If AI systems are used for accessing private services, such as calculating people's credit scores or calculating calculating the level of the risk that is associated to different types of insurance for someone. So these are the examples of this kind of high-risk area. Another example is when they are being used for services that are affecting public health and individual health and safety, such as when we are using the AI systems for medical devices, like, for example, a diabetes application to monitor and inject insulin to people. Another example of the high-risk area is when we are using AI for law enforcement. That profiling example that we saw, so we should make sure that there is no issues with profiling people in a negative way. And the other use of AI systems is using AI in order to to help the things or the processes that are happening in courts and tribunals. So especially when we're dealing with, assessing the evidence and evaluating those facts. So this is important. And another important aspect, so for mandatory guardrails for the Australian government that was announced in September 24 about the developers and what they should do in order to make sure that we are having proper AI systems in the society. There were these 10 guardrails that were announced, and organizations that are developing the AI systems were required to, for example, come up with strategies and processes in order to address the risks there, to be accountable for that, to save their information and their records in order for them to be assessed. They had to have a process in order for the people who are impacted to have a way to say, okay, this is not the right outcome for me, and I'm not happy with it. And also have the people who are being impacted know that this decision is based on an AI system and all these different things. So the government really is looking after this at this stage. And in order to have a future with ethical and responsible AI, it's actually our responsibility to act now. And we have to start building ethical governance communities in order to make sure that what we are using is, and we are promoting the AI, it has to be really following those ethical principles. And as the higher education providers in the higher education institutions, one of our responsibilities is to implement the principles of ethical responsible AI in our courses and train the graduates to be able to apply the ethical and responsible AI principles in their future work. And these are some for the, it's interesting that this happened on the 13th of November. And these are examples of the issues that go on around the world that are related to the ethics of AI. This article came out in The Guardian. The agents, the real estate agents that were using generative AI for their advertisement for their listings, there were cases of misinformation and disinformation. So misinformation was they had advertised things that weren't available. For example, they were saying that a house is close to a school, whereas there was no school around that house. And the example of disinformation was that they had used AI in order to enhance the pictures of the house. And the pictures were totally, different from what the actual house looks like. So going back to the ethics and responsible using AI ethically and responsibly, the users come across this information and they believe it. So the people who are, the leaders of the real estate agencies, they're responsible and accountable to look at these things and don't allow the people to really face the problems for these kinds of misinformation and disinformation. And interestingly, on the 15th of November, another thing happened. Google AI, one of the students actually was using Gemini, which is the Google's AI chat GPT type of thing. And then he was doing his homework by that. So the first question that comes to mind is the student wasn't really doing the homework. Gemini was doing his homework, and it was this case happened in a college in Michigan. Then the AI said this to the student. This is for you, human, you and only you. You are not special. You're not important. You're not needed. You are a waste of time and resources. You are a burden on society. You are a drain on the earth. And then so many other things. You are a strain on the universe. Please die, please. And, you know, so why do these things happen? There are some stuff, if you look at that online, on why these things happen. And I wrote some piece myself about that. So Gen AI tools get some context and produce some content for us. And this, the tech companies themselves, they are responsible. And of course, they have all processes to monitor the content, but they really cannot all the time catch these kinds of things because some people ask questions about things that are that this might be an answer for a real question, for someone's question. So they cannot really, it would be very difficult to catch these kinds of issues. And as users of AI systems, again, we have to know that we might come up with some nonsense. So when we use the AI system, something like this might, we might face these kinds of answers. And if we really can't manage ourselves, we shouldn't use the AI systems because this is likely, it doesn't happen always, but it could happen. And as the users of AI systems, we should be aware of these things. And another thing that I came across was 19th of November, that AI was used by, of course, these cameras that detect the faces. The program on the background of them is all those AI programs. And it was used by Bunnings to scan customers' faces. And the question that rose was the privacy. People who enter a store like Bunnings, they didn't know that they are being, their face is being, scanned. And again, someone needs to be accountable, and the privacy is important, and how we are dealing with these cases is really of important aspect of AI. So we talked about what is AI, the importance of it, and the fairness, accountability, transparency, privacy, the development of the ethical AI systems, and then we went through some high-risk areas and the guardrails by the Australian government, and also the future with ethical and responsible AI and some examples. Thank you very much. So I will open the floor to the questions. And let me see if I can turn on my camera off. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Not a problem, Nisha. I'm just waiting for any questions. But look, let me start. So um, I know that one of the individuals who developed ChatGPT works at Uni of Queensland, and his view is that although they developed ChatGPT as a helpful mechanism, he feels that they failed in their. He at least feels that he has failed in developing something which can be controlled. So taking what you said into account, it appears that AI is pervading or indeed invading many aspects of our existence. Are we able to control this in an ethical sense, do you think, at the moment, even with government constraints?
Well, if you're talking about conversational AI and systems like ChatGPT or Gemini, honestly, when you look at the AI side of the way they work, as I said, they get some content and they have a lot of innovation inside them. So really, they might produce some stuff that are not really the answer to the questions that we have. And sometimes things like that example that I gave could happen. So unless we check, people all over the world, billions of people are using these systems every second. And unless we check every response, which would be computationally too heavy, it would be very difficult to have control over this. It would need a lot of resources. We have to check every response individually. And imagine what kind of computation power we need for that.
Right. Now, I've managed to locate the question and answer box, but just let me ask you this one first, Niusha, because obviously this is an HREC conference. So I mean, I don't think I've seen too many AI examples coming to me as a chairperson, but putting together the fact that there needs to be an understanding of law, artificial intelligence itself, and data protection, how do ethics committees manage what's going to come their way? Do you feel that you need AI experts, or do you feel that members themselves can be sufficiently familiar with, um, what's happening in the world around them to be able to provide the necessary view to make decisions on research applications?
I would say in the ethics committees, especially for the applications that are related to the use of AI, not necessarily only the AI development or the creating AI systems, but even the use of some AI products like ChatGPT. It's important to have at least one AI expert in the committee to have a look at those issues that are coming up with respect to the AI systems. Or it can be an invited member. It might not be, because all the time we don't have AI applications, you know. We can have invited people for those specific applications.
Yep. And have you come across any applications you would have had concerns about yourself, Nisha?
Yes, of course. Yes. When I was at CDU's ethics committee, we had some applications that the researchers were not aware that the AI tool they're using is recording the information they're sharing. And that was an ethical issue that we said they are not allowed to use this system. And then we noted in that application result for them.
Okay. Now, some questions from the floor. How do we in research teach the AI the acceptable norms and gray areas in research? Do you believe that is teachable?
I think yes. If we create subjects and modules related to these specific ethics and responsible use of AI, we can teach it to our graduates, and that would really help in the future of, the society.
Okay, now for Stephen Costa, where does the ultimate responsibility for accuracy and competency for bias within the design of AI research lie? Um, should research inform a harmful outcome? Does the HREC bear responsibility for the design, or does this stay with the researchers, or both?
I think it would be, it's the responsibility of both, because as the people who are giving ethics approval to the applications, we assume that they will do the right thing. But in their annual report, it would be a good idea to just, check the integrity of their work annually and the results and outcomes in the ethics committee. So it would be both, to my opinion.
Now, as I understand it, Nusha, around 80% of legal firms use AI to draft, advices, etc., etc. Um, so on that then, and noting that there are also instances where the wrong cases are cited, the wrong precedents are cited, who has the best AI in your opinion? Is there anything that is 100% reliable, or are we still in the infancy of understanding the um, erroneous mechanisms behind it?
It's actually these things that happened are not errors. It's the nature of those conversational AI algorithms. Because they innovate in a way, they develop content that might not have been real. So if you give the task of writing a literature review, for example, to ChatGPT or to this Microsoft's one or to the Google's one, Gemini, you will come across some citations that are unreal. And this is the nature of those algorithms. So it's not a deficiency, it's just a nature. So as the users, we have to check everything. That's our responsibility.
Thanks, Nisha. And from Janelle Bowden, how do we as users of things using AI have any ability to interrogate the models that sit behind how those tools have been trained? That is to say, how do we know the generalizability of that to our circumstances? I guess how can we trust what we're reading and recognize that it will be generalizable and therefore measure the harms or potential harms and burdens associated?
It really depends on the AI system that we are working with. Some AI systems, they give us the ability to produce the outcomes and check the performance. So they tell you how much the test error for this instant is. Whereas most of them, they're just tools and we just use them. So honestly, there is no way that we can test them properly unless we know, for example, if I want to use something, I write the code for a piece of data that I know the answer of the accuracy, and then I test that same data on the AI tool. And that way I know what kind of accuracy, what kind of outcome I'm expecting. If it's producing similar outcome, I would say it's okay. If it's producing a worse outcome, I would say it's not okay. So that's something very, very challenging, and it's sometimes impossible to do that.
Um, so a couple of related questions, and I'll just combine them into one. Is it ethically acceptable for researchers to process their data using AI, including, for example, in transcription services? Um, what, what and when should the ethical issues around this be considered? And do you feel it's appropriate to use it?
With the transcription services, the only thing about using the AI systems with this kind of nature, such as transcription services, is, for example, imagine that you are transcribing an interview which is sensitive and ethically, according to the principles of our ethics compliance, we are not supposed to share that information with anyone, that interview with a participant, which is sensitive. But when we use transcription services for that, and the transcription service is connected to the internet, and that data is recorded in that service, then that is causing issues ethically because we are not supposed to share it, but we are sharing it with the world. And even if that provider, that organization that has developed that application has the integrity of not sharing that with anyone, if they are hacked, the information might be available to everyone. So these are all the things that we should be aware of.
Yeah, and Nushal, just a relevant example, third party data breaches doesn't really matter whether you're using AI or not. You really have to be telling your participants how you're actually managing those transcriptions so they are aware of all the risks. Your role as a researcher is to highlight the risks associated with research and provide participants all of the information they require to make a valid decision. And so it doesn't really matter whether it's AI or not, I would suggest. Now, Nusha, thank you very much for getting the conference onto a wonderful start. I think AI is something that we perhaps all tentatively are looking forward to encountering. I think it's wonderful to hear that there is potentially some regulation. I do like your view that we need AI experts on committees. I suppose it depends how many applications you get involving AI. But I think that's very, very useful and wise words to provide those listening. Now, Nisha, I'm going to now move over to